Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Noah here, breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Wednesday, November the 4th. We're going to take a first look at today's 10-game slate. We'll talk about Draftkings, and then we will talk about some guys that I see on Yahoo that I like just looking at this slate the night before. As always, guys, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like down below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel if you have not yet. Click that notification bell so that way you get notified every time I upload. You can also follow me on Twitter. Link is down in the description, at DFS by Noah. Also down in the description, you can check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/DFS by Noah. I have a ton of exclusive premium content over on Patreon. You can see some of the stuff that I have available if you just check out my page. I have premium articles. It's usually about a 6 to 8 page article that I write Monday through Friday, breaking down the whole NBA slate, giving some of my favorite plays, updated plays, obviously. These YouTube videos are just kind of first looks. If you want a lot of my updated content, if you want to see some of the updated content that I have available, you can check out my Patreon. I have a Discord chat that you can join where me and all of the other Patreon subscribers were in there just talking DFS throughout the day up until lock. I'm usually always in there answering questions. So if you want to get in on some of that stuff, the Discord chat, some of my articles, I do have other videos as well over on Patreon. You can check all that stuff out. Link is down in the description. But let's go ahead and run through point guard for today. We'll start off there, go position by position. So we got Luka Doncic, Trae Young, LeBron James, kind of the three stud options at point guard, at least on Draftkings. This is definitely a slate loaded with studs. I mean, a 10-game slate, you're going to have a lot of stud options. You got Giannis against Detroit, Luka against the Timberwolves, Cat against Dallas. Obviously, you got Trae Young against Brooklyn, LeBron and AD facing the Jazz. Even got like Drummond against the Bucks. So pretty loaded slate in terms of stud options. I mean, it was Luka for me on Tuesday night. He was the guy that I wanted to pay up for. And he had a pretty good game for the 28 minutes that he played. Like, blowouts have really been frustrating these last few days of NBA DFS. Like, the blowouts have really killed me. Guys just not getting fourth quarter run. Like, Porzingis, I mean, he didn't play in the blowout either, but foul trouble is what killed him on Tuesday night. And I really like Porzingis a lot, so that was very frustrating. I expect Luka, though, to be back to his full minutes here against Minnesota, even though it's a back-to-back. I believe this game has a close spread right now, 231 total in this game, which is the highest on the slate. 3.5 point spread, so we should project a close game here between Minnesota and Dallas. This Minnesota team is one of the top 5 teams in pace this season. They rank 4th in pace, so this is a really good pace-up spot for the Mavericks. The Mavericks were in a really good matchup Tuesday against the Pelicans. They get an equally good matchup today against the Timberwolves. Luka Doncic's the top stud on the slate, in my opinion. I love that you can play him as small forward on Draftkings. He's the guy that I want to jam in, and since it's a 10-game slate, I imagine we'll get some injury news as the day goes on. On Wednesday, we might get some value. I mean, there's some fine value right now. There's guys like 5K-ish that I do like as value plays. There's no like cheap value that I see, but I'm definitely going to be trying to jam in Luka on both sides. He's point guard on Yahoo, which kind of sucks. He's $55, though. He's still the top stud over there. I played him over James Harden on Tuesday night. I had a lot more exposure to Luka than Harden. At least as of now, the time I'm recording this video, that's going well. I believe Harden has like 40 fantasy points. I think Luka finished with like 58, if I'm not mistaken. But Luka's the guy that I want to go to on Yahoo. I prefer him over like Giannis, LeBron, AD. I think it's interesting that the Lakers are on a back-to-back. I do want to talk about this. So the Lakers are on a back-to-back. We know that Anthony Davis has been dealing with like a shoulder injury. There was like an illness that came around. I mean, he played on Tuesday, but I would not be surprised if you get like Anthony Davis winds up sitting this game. Obviously, that's something we'll have to wait and see on as we head into the slate on Wednesday. I'll keep you guys updated over on Patreon with all that stuff if injuries do break. But honestly, wouldn't be surprised if we get like a random Anthony Davis like rest this game because it is a back-to-back and with all the shoulder stuff he's been dealing with lately. But we'll just have to wait and see there. So other point guards, I mean, there's not much in this mid-range that like really catches my eye in terms of core plays. Ricky Rubio is questionable, so if he's out, that's a boost for Devin Booker. Devin Booker's $8K on Draftkings, which is kind of just like a reasonable price. I would have a lot of interest in him on Yahoo. He's at shooting guard. He's $34. He's the most expensive shooting guard, but shooting guard is usually a weak position on Yahoo. I definitely think Booker has some appeal over there, especially if we do get Ricky Rubio out today. Devontae Graham's in a really good matchup. He's never going to stand out as a core play, especially on a 10-game slate. He's usually always priced correctly on Draftkings. But I do like him a lot against the Warriors. He's really appealing on Yahoo. He's kind of been underpriced over there for a while now. I mean, $28 is still a little bit too cheap for Devontae Graham. So in that mid-range, I could see going to him. But the guy that I want to talk about that I like the most at point guard is Donovan Mitchell. So he's 7,100 on DraftKings, and he's at shooting guard on Yahoo, and he's $30. He's definitely my favorite play at the shooting guard position. I like Booker if Rubio's out. I like Devontae Graham, but if I can only play one lineup, Donovan Mitchell's going to be the guy that I go to at shooting guard on Yahoo. And on DraftKings, you can play him at point guard or shooting guard. One of my favorite plays today when you do factor in that Mike Conley is going to be out for this game, that's really big. If we just look at the usage so far this season when Mike Conley is off the floor, Donovan Mitchell does see the biggest boost. He does lead the team in usage when you take Mike Conley off the floor. He has a 31.7% usage rate with Conley off, averaging 1.13 fantasy points per minute, 272-minute sample size, so a pretty big sample size here. We're going to see a lot of Donovan Mitchell at point guard in this game, and it's very likely that he starts at point guard. I imagine they'll start Joe Ingles at like the 2, so you'll see Mitchell slide over to point guard, and then they'll start Joe Ingles at shooting guard, and then they'll have Bogdanovich, O'Neal, and Rudy Gobert at center. But if we just look at the differential with Mike Conley off the floor, does see a slight bump in his usage percentage, also a slight bump in his fantasy point per minute totals. I mean, anytime we get like Donovan Mitchell starting at point guard, just going back to last season, whenever you had Ricky Rubio out when he played for the Jazz, and we got like Mitchell starting at point guard, that would make him like one of the more appealing options. And getting Mike Conley out today and getting Mitchell starting at point guard makes him very appealing in my eyes. I know it's a tough matchup against the Lakers. This game right now, I don't believe it has a total. Let me double check that real quick. It does have a total. It's a 210 total, just a 2-point spread. It's going to be a close game. It's going to be a low-scoring game, though. I mean, this game does have one of the lowest totals on the slate. These are two teams that play really slow. I mean, if we just look at pace so far this season, these are like two of the slower-paced teams. The Lakers ranked 22nd. I believe the Jazz ranked 17th. So not a great pace game, but when you just factor in the price tag for Mitchell, like he was 7,800 on the last slate. He was 8,200 on the slate before that. He's had two really rough games. His price tag has dropped a ton on DraftKings, and now we get him playing without Mike Conley. So I really like Donovan Mitchell today on both sides, 7,100 on DraftKings, $30 on Yahoo. He just feels way too cheap and really stands out to me at the point guard, shooting guard position, whichever you want to consider him at. But then just other point guards that we could maybe look to. There's not much in this mid-range. Like Alec Burks was pretty popular last slate, but Draymond Green, I believe, is going to play today. There's also a chance that D'Angelo Russell returns, so that's going to take a big hit for Alec Burks. I don't have much interest in him. Markelle Fultz against the Suns, 5,700. He's firmly in play if you want to consider him in this mid-range. I think there's quite a bit of strong plays in this mid-range. We do have Tomas Satoransky at 5,200, who I like a lot here against the Grizzlies. So the Grizzlies this season are playing much faster than they have in past seasons. If we just look at pace so far this season, the Grizzlies are a top 10 team in pace. They rank 6th. With John Morant off the floor, they're going to get much better defensively versus point guards. Replacing John Morant with Tyus Jones is going to make your defense much better. Tyus Jones is a really good defender. But still, Satoransky's been seeing good minutes lately, over 30 minutes in 3 straight games, 35, 30, and 34. At 5,200, for him to be a good play at this price, you really only need about 30 DraftKings points, and I think Satoransky can easily get that here in a fast-paced game. I believe this game does have one of the higher totals on the slate, if I'm not mistaken. Or it's actually offline right now, so we don't know yet. But I imagine once we do get a total on this game, it's going to be pretty high. You do have two relatively fast-paced teams. Grizzlies rank 6th, the Bulls rank 11th. Have a lot of interest in this game on both sides. There's some injuries we're going to have to watch on the Memphis side, like with Jonas Valanciunas, who could maybe be out today, which could open up some plays. From the Bulls side, though, I really like Satoransky, 5,200 on DraftKings. He's definitely in play on Yahoo. He's $13 over there, but we're going to talk about some other guys that I like around that salary. So that's not why I'm not going to include Satoransky in the core on Yahoo. But then you have in the same game Tyus Jones for $100 cheaper, and Tyus Jones is also a guy that I like quite a bit as well. So he has started the last 2 games with John Morant out. He's played 25 and 31 minutes. He's had 31 and 16 DraftKings points in those 2 games. He wasn't very productive in that last game against the Pacers, but it was very encouraging to see that he played 31 minutes after 25 minutes in that game against Minnesota. That was a really tough matchup against the Pacers. This is a much better spot for him against the Bulls today. If we're going to get 30 minutes of Tyus Jones, which is what we should get most nights with Morant out, I think you can easily project him for close to 30 DraftKings points. He really stands out on both sides. His price dropped a little bit. He was 5,600 on the last slate. He's down to 5,200 today. In a really good spot. I like Tyus Jones a lot here. He's one of those guys I love to roster. I think he's just such a good, especially just going back to his days with the Timberwolves. Whenever he would get starts for Jeff Teague, Tyus Jones would just be like a lock because he can just do so much. He can score. He can get assists. He's a great defender. He can pick up steals. I really like him on both sides. He's a little bit too cheap on DraftKings, and he's definitely too cheap on Yahoo. I didn't include Satoransky because you have Tyus Jones at $12, who I do slightly prefer over him. I think we can easily get 30 fantasy points from Tyus Jones today, and he makes a ton of sense at point guard. And then one more guy I want to talk about in that price range is DeAndre BEMBRY. So he is $5K on DraftKings. He has seen his minutes increase as well. He's moved into the starting lineup. They did start him in that last game against the Warriors, and he played 28 minutes in that game, had 26 DraftKings points. Even with Cam Reddish healthy, you had DeAndre BEMBRY start at shooting guard over him. If we're going to continue to get DeAndre BEMBRY starting, it's pretty easy to project him for about 30 minutes a night if he's going to be in the starting lineup. Just in the games that he has started this season, his minutes have been relatively high in the low to mid-30s just in terms of minutes. That game against Golden State was a blowout. He still did play in the fourth quarter. I can actually pull up their rotation real quick just to show you guys. I looked at it before I started recording, but I'll pull it up again. He did play in the fourth quarter. I think he subbed out with 3 or 4 minutes left. Let's see here. Let's go to BEMBRY. Yeah, he subbed out with 2.5 minutes left in the fourth quarter. I imagine if the game is competitive, you'd get him to 30 minutes. So in the spot against Brooklyn, a game that should be played at a fast pace and should be high scoring as well. This game is offline, but if we just look at pace so far this season, Brooklyn, they rank 8th in pace. The Hawks rank 12th. These are two relatively fast-paced teams. Also two relatively bad defensive teams as well. So really like DeAndre BEMBRY today, 5K on DraftKings. He really stands out. All these 5K guys like BEMBRY, Jones, Satoransky, I think all three of these guys can easily give you 30-plus DraftKings points today. I like BEMBRY on Yahoo as well. I'm not going to include him in the core because there's some other guys we'll talk about. But BEMBRY is $14. He's firmly in play along with Tyus Jones, Satoransky. All those guys, $12 to $14, make a lot of sense over on Yahoo. And if you're playing multiple lineups, I would definitely want to get exposure to all three of those guys. If you want a pivot off of Tyus Jones, you have De'Anthony Melton for $4,600, who's not playing a ton of minutes, but he's been very productive in the two games that he's played without John Morant. He's pretty much played backup point guard. He did play a little bit alongside Tyus Jones in that last game against the Pacers. He's gotten 23 and 25 minutes, 35, 32 DraftKings points. He's been really productive on the glass, and he's been chipping in with the peripherals. He had 7 and 9 rebounds in those two games, 8 and 4 assists. He shot really poorly in that game against Minnesota, just shot 20% from the field, but still had 35 DraftKings points because of the peripherals. I mean, I don't want to play De'Anthony Melton if he's only going to play 24, 25 minutes. I don't expect him to continue to be this productive. But if you're looking for a pivot off of Tyus Jones, especially if Tyus Jones starts to get a lot of traction and it sounds like he might be high owned or something, obviously your pivot there is just to go to De'Anthony Melton. And if Tyus Jones struggles, there's a very good chance that Melton is having a good game off the bench. Brad Wanamaker was the last guy I wanted to talk about. There might be a chance that he starts today. Marcus Smart is doubtful. I doubt they start Wanamaker. I imagine they'll start Semi Ojeleye or something. But Wanamaker, if he were to move into the starting lineup, I mean, it's a terrible matchup against Miami, but if he moves into the starting lineup, you have to project him for probably 30 minutes, and at 4,100, even in a bad matchup, he would be a fine value play at shooting guard. But let's go ahead and run through, or point guard, let's go ahead and run through shooting guard now. So at this position, just looking in the mid-range and the upper tier, there's not much that really stands out. I mean, D'Angelo Russell's a pretty big injury we're going to need to watch. He's 8,500. We know what D'Angelo Russell's going to do when he's on the floor with this Warriors team. I mean, his usage is just absolutely insane. I can pull it up, or I can actually pull it up real quick just so we can see his usage with Steph Curry off the floor this season. I mean, his numbers, that small sample size, or that small few amount of games that he was healthy when Curry was out before he got injured, he was putting up ridiculous numbers. So he has played, so far this season, 241 minutes with Curry off the floor. He has a 34.7% usage rate, 40% assist percentage, averaging 1.33 fantasy points per minute. We do know that Draymond, he's going to play today, I believe, but he's going to be limited, is what Steve Kerr said. They're going to limit Draymond to 28 minutes a game, or 26, 28 minutes a game, somewhere in that range. We haven't gotten any word if Russell's going to be limited or anything. if we're getting Russell playing 34, 36 minutes, especially against this Hornets team that just does not play defense at all, D'Angelo Russell would definitely be intriguing today. I mean, I'd probably save $1,400. Like, if I'm playing one lineup, I'd rather save the $1,400 and play Donovan Mitchell. And I'm not sure why Donovan Mitchell's not in the 5 plays. He should have been in the 5 plays. Let me go ahead and plug him in there. I don't know why he didn't get plugged in. I would probably save the $1,400 and play Mitchell, but still, I'm definitely going to have interest in Russell today if he can give it a go. But in this mid-range shooting guard, I mean, there's not really much that stands out here. Like, maybe Jaylen Brown sees a small boost with Marcus Smart off the floor, but against the Heat, I don't really need to go to him on a 10-game slate. Evan Fournier, I still think, is a pretty fine option, $6,500. Not a core play by any means, but if you're going to that price range, he's probably my favorite guy, like over SGA, over Jeremy Lamb, Kennard. I definitely take Fournier there. Talked about Markelle Fultz, who I like quite a bit today. Dylan Brooks is someone I want to talk about on Yahoo. You could definitely play him on DraftKings, but I really like his Yahoo salary of just $14. That's one of the reasons I didn't plug in Bembry or Satoransky, is because you have Brooks at 14, who I like a lot here. So just the last 2 games with John Morant out, you have gotten 31 and 30 minutes from Dylan Brooks, and he's put up 31 and 32 fantasy points. He does see a bump in usage with John Morant off the floor this season. I can pull up the numbers. I showed you guys, I believe, in the last video or on Monday's video, but I'll show you again for maybe those people that didn't catch Monday's video. So let's take John Morant off the floor. We could take Valanciunas off the floor as well, or we should have took Brandon Clark off the floor. I don't know if that really makes a difference, but we'll do that as well. We do know that Brandon Clark's going to be out for this game, and maybe Valanciunas is out as well. That's some news we're going to have to wait and see on. But in 107-minute sample size of no John Morant, no Brandon Clark, both those guys off the floor, you've got a 27.3% usage rate for Dylan Brooks, averaging over a fantasy point per minute. Does have a 17.1% assist percentage as well. If we look at the differential there, that's a plus 5.3% bump in his usage and a plus 0.16 bump in his fantasy points per minute total. So he really benefits when you take John Morant off the floor. He's firmly in play on DraftKings at $5,700, but I really like him on that given his Yahoo salary of just $14 at the shooting guard position. I'm going to be playing a lot of Donovan Mitchell on Yahoo, but I'm definitely like to save at shooting guard. If you want to do that, you can play Brooks at 14. I should have plugged him in. I thought I was going to plug him in. Really like Brooks at his Yahoo salary. But just talking about a few more shooting guards, if there's anything that stands out. Like I said back when I was talking about Mitchell, I do expect Joe Ingles to move into the starting lineup. I mean, he's not like a great value play today, but I would definitely have a little bit of exposure to him. We know Joe Ingles is one of those guys that just can get hot, and when he's making his shots, he can put up 35, close to 40 DK points. He's $4,900. He got a little bit of a price bump, but still, you could definitely get 6x value from Joe Ingles here, especially if he's back in the starting lineup. You would feel safer about his minutes. He probably gets back to 30-plus minutes today. So definitely have a little bit of interest in Ingles. I think he's small forward on Yahoo, and he's like minimum salary. Yeah, he's $11 at small forward, so I do have a lot of interest in Joe Ingles over on Yahoo at small forward. And usually just like glancing through the small forward position, it's usually always a pretty weak position. Like you got Butler and Isaac and maybe Brown and Oubre you could pay up for, but other than that, there's not much that stands out. Maybe Bogdanovich at $19 you could look to. But definitely would go to Ingles as a value play, especially if he is in the starting lineup. But I think we pretty much covered all the shooting guards that I see. Just looking at this slate the night before, Terrence Ross was someone I wanted to talk about. I think he's still minimum salary on Yahoo. Yeah, he's minimum salary on Yahoo. He's firmly in play. I mean, he's going to play probably 28 to 30 minutes off the bench. He only played 18 minutes on Tuesday night, which was kind of frustrating. I did have quite a bit of exposure to him over on Yahoo, but he still put up a fantasy point per minute. I mean, he's very likely to give you 25 to 30 fantasy points, and at minimum salary on Yahoo, he's firmly in play as well as another really good value shooting guard. Let's go ahead and talk about some small forwards now. So you got Giannis, LeBron at the top of this position. I don't really have interest in paying up for either guy today unless we get like some crazy news that Anthony Davis is going to rest or something. Giannis against Detroit, I mean, that's a really good matchup. Nobody on Detroit's going to be able to slow him down, but I just much rather would have Luka in a much better game with a faster pace, a higher total, a game that should stay close as well. Like the only reason we haven't gotten like ceiling games from Giannis the last few games is because of blowout. Like the Knicks have just been blowing out everybody, and honestly, it wouldn't be surprised. Or the Bucks, I didn't mean to say the Knicks. The Bucks have just been blowing out everybody, and it wouldn't be surprising if they blow out the Pistons here. So I'd be a little skeptical on Giannis today. I do prefer Luka for a little bit cheaper. I think at small forward, There's mid-range plays I like Jonathan Isaac, 6,800. I think still gives you plenty of upside on that price tag. He's firmly in play. Kelly Oubre, especially if Rubio is out today. Kelly Oubre does see a slight bump when Rubio is out, so you could go to Oubre at 6,500. I like Jabari Parker quite a bit here at 6,400 against Brooklyn. This is definitely a spot where I think Jabari Parker can have some success. This is a guy that has absolutely burned me this season. Like, every time I play him, he sucks, and every time I don't play him, he goes ham. Like, I didn't play him in that game when he was on the road against the Bucks, and he had 64 DraftKings points. And then I'm pretty sure I played him, or at least I had a decent amount of exposure to him, like every slate, just the last 3 games that he's played. I'll probably get exposure to Jabari Parker today. He'll probably suck, and I'll just hate myself. But 6,400 for Jabari Parker in a fast-paced game against Brooklyn. Definitely have interest in him. We know he's going to play pretty big minutes with John Collins off the floor. He's going to start at power forward. The minutes should be there as long as the game is competitive. So I do like Jabari Parker quite a bit today. I think he's still like way too cheap on Yahoo if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, he's $28 at power forward. I like him a lot over on Yahoo as well. But just other small forwards. Aaron Gordon, we saw have a relatively nice game on Tuesday against the Wizards. He was 5,700. I don't think he was very chalky, but he did put up a pretty good score on his $5,700 salary. 5,900 today against the Suns, a team that's starting to play a little bit faster than they were at the beginning of the season. Definitely have interest in Aaron Gordon at small forward. He would definitely be in my player pool. Dylan Brooks, I talked about. I like a decent amount today. I think you can play Joe Ingles at small forward, who's a value play, assuming he starts. If we get Jonas Valanciunas out, we did see Solomon Hill start at power forward last game, and they moved Jaren Jackson to center. I imagine if Valanciunas is out today, they do that same thing. And we got 33 minutes from Hill in that last game. He put up 39 DraftKings points. He was very productive. He shot lights out from the floor. He shot 64% from the floor and 66% from 3 in that game. You obviously don't expect him to shoot that well every single game, but if we're going to get 32, 34 minutes from Solomon Hill with Valanciunas out, even at 4,700, I would still have a little bit of interest in him as a value play. I'm pretty sure he's still minimum salary on Yahoo. He's $12 at power forward. Definitely one of the better power forward value plays today. If Valanciunas is out, that's some news we're going to have to wait and see on. Let's go ahead and run through power forward. Look at this position. So I don't have much interest in the top. I think Sabonis at 8,300 stands out against OKC if you're going to pay up. I mean, Sabonis always gives you like 45, 50-point upside every time he steps on the floor. This is a guy that can easily go for 6x this salary. He played 30 minutes against Memphis. He still had 47 DraftKings points. He did foul out in that game. I imagine if he doesn't foul out, I'm not sure when he fouled out. I can look that up real quick just so we can see. I imagine he fouled out like in the 4th quarter or something, but we'll just check. We'll check it and take a look. So Sabonis fouled out. Yeah, he fouled out about halfway through the 4th quarter, so he lost about 5 minutes because he fouled out. Or maybe it was right there when he hit that last. Or no, he fouled out about halfway through the 4th quarter, so he probably lost like 4 or 5 minutes due to picking up his 6th foul. You're going to get like 34 to 36 minutes from Sabonis in games that are competitive. For what it's worth, this is a revenge game for Sabonis. He did used to play for the Thunder. I don't think there's much of a narrative there, but 8,300 for Sabonis against OKC. I do like that quite a bit. He put up 43 DraftKings points in 29 minutes against them earlier this season for what that's worth. I mean, you're going to get 40 to 45 DK points most nights from Sabonis, and he's got the upside to go for more than that. So if I'm going to pay up at power forward, he's probably my favorite play. Porzingis still feels a little bit too cheap on DraftKings. He burned me big time on Tuesday, getting into foul trouble, and then that game blowing out didn't help either. I'm fine going back to him, though, at a $6,900 price tag. I mean, he still gives you like a 35, 40-point floor, I feel like, most nights. And we've seen Porzingis have the upside to go for 50 fantasy points. You can play him and Luka together. They both correlate very well. They just do all the heavy lifting for Dallas. So if you're getting big games from Luka, you can get a big game from Porzingis as well. We know that both of those guys are going to contribute big time. I'm definitely going to have my eye on that Valanciunas news, because if Jonas Valanciunas is out today, Jaren Jackson Jr., especially if he's starting at center again, would become a smash play for me against the Bulls. I mean, this is such a good spot for Jaren Jackson Jr., especially if he is starting at center. He's relatively nicely priced on Yahoo at $22. Like, I love him here. He played 33 minutes that last game against the Pacers, had 45 fantasy points. Jaren Jackson Jr. is just such a productive player. He can score, he can shoot threes, he can rebound. With him starting at center, you do expect his rebound potential to increase. Only concern with Jaren Jackson Jr. is always with like his fouls. I mean, you just never know. This dude could foul out in like 20 minutes. He's done it multiple times this season. He fouled out in 19 minutes against Minnesota. There's always foul potential here for Jaren Jackson Jr., but for what it's worth, he went ham earlier this year against the Bulls. 32 minutes, had 43 DraftKings points. If we get Valanciunas out, I would expect a similar line from him, and at 6,800, he would definitely be like at the top of my interest list in terms of power forwards today. I would definitely have him over Porzingis if Valanciunas is out, especially when you factor in that matchup against the Bulls. The Bulls have just been getting killed by bigs this season. They've been really struggling on the glass as well. You got Jabari Parker at 6,400, who I talked about. Dario Saric has been playing really well lately with Aaron Baines off the floor. We do know that Aaron Baines is going to be out today. Since he's priced up to 6,200, I don't think there's like a ton of appeal there. I mean, I'd probably try and get to Jabari Parker if possible. I think Sarge is probably more interesting on Yahoo, where he's $21, but if Valanciunas is out, like, just give me all the Jaren Jackson Jr. for $22. I would definitely take him over Sarge. But depending on how injuries shake, I could have a little bit of interest in Sarge today. Definitely check out my content on Patreon, where I'll have like my full breakdown of the slate as we do get some of the injury news on Wednesday. But now in this mid-range, so Frank Kaminsky's 5,500, which is a fair price tag. I mean, that's what he probably should be priced. He's going to play pretty big minutes here. He did play 33 minutes last game against the Hornets with both Aaron Baines and CHEICK DIALLO out. We do know that CHEICK DIALLO is going to play today. And one of the reasons that Frank Kaminsky has not been playing big minutes when Baines has been out is because CHEICK DIALLO has been taking a lot of minutes from him. Obviously, with Diallo able to play today, there's a chance that he loses minutes to, Frank Kaminsky loses some of his minutes to Diallo. But he's so cheap on Yahoo, he's really hard to avoid. I mean, he's $11 at center. It sucks that you have to roster him at center, but still, it's really hard to get away from him. He's going to start with Aaron Baines out. His minutes should be like in the high 20s, low 30s, as long as he's playing well. I mean, if CHEICK DIALLO comes off the bench and starts producing very well, then they'll probably give CHEICK DIALLO a lot of run, but it's going to be hard to predict that. And with Frank still being so cheap on Yahoo, I like him quite a bit today. On DraftKings, getting the price up to 5,500, there's just other guys I would rather go to. But now under 5K for value power forwards, you got Solomon Hill that you could look to, who I talked about earlier. Other than him, though, I think that's probably it. I think CHEICK DIALLO is worth taking a flyer on. 3,800. He's been playing really well just the last few games before his injury or whatever, or his illness. He's going to play probably pretty much like backup center whenever Frank Kaminsky's off the floor. He's played like big minutes some of these games. Like he played 36 minutes against Denver, 23 minutes against Washington. CHEICK DIALLO is a very productive player. Like he can score and rebound like crazy. I mean, even if this guy plays 20 minutes, he can give you 30, 35 DraftKings points in 20 minutes. So I definitely have a little bit of tournament interest in Diallo, especially on DraftKings, where you can roster him at power forward and center, and he's so cheap at 3,800. I still expect Kaminsky to start, and I expect most nights Kaminsky's going to be the center that gets the most run, especially while Aaron Baines remains out. But there's at least a chance that CHEICK DIALLO gets some good run off the bench, and with how productive he is, I would at least have him in my player pool at 3,800. But I think that's it for power forward. Let's go ahead and talk about some center plays real quick before we end the video. So you got Karl-Anthony Towns at the top for 10,600. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns is definitely a fine play today. He's not my top stud. Like, I would much rather get to Luka for $1,000 more. But obviously, there's plenty of upside for Karl-Anthony Towns on a $10,600 salary. I mean, he can easily give you 60, 65 DraftKings points. He's going to be a very productive player with this Timberwolves team. He's going to get a ton of usage. He's a great scorer. He can rebound. He's pretty much a lock for a double-double most nights. He can get assists as well. He's a great shot blocker. I mean, he's probably my second favorite stud on this slate. It's close between like him or Trae Young. Like, I definitely have Luka number one. Number two, it'd be close between Young or Towns. I mean, since I like Luka so much, you do have like that positive correlation of running it back with Karl-Anthony Towns. So I guess I would go with Towns number two. But I do like him and Trae Young as well. Obviously, Luka, though, is the guy that I want the most today at 11.6. AD, even at 9,400, I'm not the biggest fan of today. I mean, it's a tough matchup against the Jazz. I don't expect him to be very productive in this matchup. They have Rudy Gobert that can put on him, who's a good defender. I mean, I don't think Royce O'Neal's going to guard AD. I don't know how they're going to actually defend him. I don't think Royce O'Neal's the answer, but still, I just don't like this matchup. It's a slow-paced game. Really, the only interest I have in this Lakers-Jazz game is Donovan Mitchell at 7,100, and then I have some interest in Joe Ingles as a value play as well if he starts, but that's really about it. Jonas Valanciunas is the big injury at center that we're going to have to watch. And I definitely have a lot of interest in him if he's able to play today. This is a smash spot for Valanciunas against the Bulls. We know how bad the Bulls have been defending centers, allowing like top 5 in the league in terms of fantasy points allowed to centers. They've been a terrible rebounding team as well. And something that's very good to see is that Valanciunas has played 34 and 32 minutes the last 2 games that he's been healthy. I imagine he's going to play probably 30 minutes here. He's such a productive player. He has so much upside. Even at 7,900, there's still plenty of upside for Valanciunas to get you 6x value. He can easily go for 50 DraftKings points. He's really, I mean, at $24 on Yahoo, like, he would become one of my favorite plays on the slate if he's able to play today. Like, you can easily get a 50-point game from Valanciunas if he's good to go. I think he does see a slight bump with John Morant off the floor as well. Plus, Brandon Clark's going to be out, so that just frees up more front court minutes for Valanciunas. So that's a big injury to watch. Obviously, if he is out, the biggest beneficiary will probably be Jaren Jackson Jr., who I talked about. I do have a lot of interest in today if Valanciunas sits. But there's not really much in this like mid-range at center that I'm like keying in on. Like, I mean, maybe Jarrett Allen against the Hawks, but with DeAndre Jordan healthy now, we've seen Allen's minutes have kind of gone down to like mid-20s. He's not playing 30, 34 minutes like he was getting these last few games with DeAndre Jordan out. Now with DeAndre Jordan healthy, they're going to probably equally split the center minutes, and you're going to get like 24 to 26 minutes from Allen most nights. So even in a good matchup against the Hawks, he's really hard to trust with his minutes, like with the minute ceiling not really being there. I mean, there's fine plays in this mid-range, like Kaminsky, who I talked about. Keem Birch has been playing pretty well lately. He's only center eligible on DraftKings, which sucks, but it is a pretty positive matchup for him against the Suns, so there's definitely a little bit of interest in Birch. I know he's still really cheap on Yahoo. He's minimum salary at power forward. You can definitely go to him over there. He only had 24 fantasy points. He didn't score at all in that game on Tuesday night against the Wizards. I did have quite a bit of exposure to Birch on Yahoo because he was minimum salary on that slate, and he's minimum salary again today, so I'll definitely have a lot of exposure to him as well. He didn't score a single point in that game, but he was still able to put up 24 fantasy points. He was able to contribute on the glass and with the peripherals, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, 2 blocks. He did foul out. I'm not sure if he lost any minutes in that game due to foul out. I don't think he fouled out. I think he fouled out towards the end of the game, so he really didn't lose a ton of minutes. I mean, he's probably going to play about 30 minutes a night with Vucevic off the floor. He's going to be the starting center, so there's definitely potential for Birch, especially on Yahoo where he's minimum salary. I guess the last guy I want to talk about at center is Willie Cauley-Stein, just because I like his matchup so much. I wish the Warriors would give him like 30 minutes. I don't know why they're capping his minutes. I mean, he's only played like a maximum of... He's played 28 and 29 minutes twice just the last few games. Like, it seems like he's going to be capped around 24, 26 minutes. Like, I would love him here if he can play 30 minutes against the Hornets, especially at 4,800. Similar to the Bulls, this Hornets team has been incredibly bad on the glass. They've been a really bad defensive team versus centers. Willie Cauley-Stein did put up 25 fantasy points and only 21 minutes against them earlier this season. He's at least worth a deep flyer in GPPs. Like, if you're playing 150 lineups, I would want Willie Cauley-Stein in my player pool. But obviously, if you're just playing one lineup or even 20 lineups, it's very unlikely that I get to Willie Cauley-Stein. But I think that's it for center, guys. I think we pretty much covered everything. I think we talked about everybody that I see just looking at this slate the night before. So these are my DraftKings 5 and Yahoo 5 as of now. Obviously, over on Patreon, I will update you guys throughout the day as we get injury news. I'll have a ton of updated content over on Patreon, so if you want to check all that out, you can do so. Link is down in the description, patreon.com/DFSbyNoah. You can check out all the packages I have available. Depending on what package you choose, you can get access to our Discord chat where I'm in there pretty much all day throughout the day while I write my articles. I'm in Discord answering questions. You can talk with everyone else in the chat as well. But I think that's it, guys. Drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you are new, or subscribe if you have not yet. You can follow me on Twitter as well. Link is down in the description, along with my Patreon page. Good luck tonight, and we will see you in the next video. Peace.